welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Dragoncast. My name is Brian Daniels. I'm back once again with my podcast partner in crime, Victor Salazar. And we've got some very special guests with us on this episode today, Victor, because today we're going to be talking about, is it a good idea to have a convention during the pandemic? And joining us today are three very special guests. I got Tom Croom. He is a writer. He's covered the convention scene. He is a co-host of the Convention Nerds. You see that little logo there? He's got
the logo there's awesome.
The little logo.
All about the shameless plugs.
Hey man, you know what? We're all about that here on Dragoncast. We're all about supporting and promoting anybody that we can. So, and he's got some thoughts.
But
on,
yes,
yeah, man. He's got some thoughts on the convention scene.
I'm the CEO of what's called Green Mustard Entertainment, which our brand name is Wasabi Anime. And what Wasabi Anime is we actually own and operate conventions all across North America. And we're also contracted by conventions in order to design their anime-based entertainment. So if you go to like MegaCon in Orlando, Florida, or Fan Expo Canada, Dallas, Boston, WasabiCon in Jacksonville, Fandom PDX Portland, that's all our company. This is my full-time job. That's what we do. And what we do on the side, obviously, is, I do consulting work professionally for, mass gatherings, pop culture events. Mm-hmm. And we designed a podcast 7 years ago called Convention Nerds, which with the idea of, talking to professionals on a weekly basis. And now it's, Wasabi Anime has this Twitch channel, and I have a great producer who put all that together for me. And so I get to complain about this once a week. But yes, I'm in the glorious state of Florida, which back in June, we were the first to foray back into attempting mass gathering pop culture events. So that's the perspective I'm coming from. Is I own conventions. I run them professionally. I've done that for years. And now I'm also a co-host of a podcast talking about it. And in the midst of a pandemic, lots to talk about. So
absolutely. Absolutely, Tom. I completely agree. And then we've also got to the right on the screen here, we got Samuel Chase. And Samuel, you also are a convention runner. You run the largest convention in upstate New York, Saratoga Comic-Con. And so, Samuel, thank you for joining us this morning as well. If you want to go ahead and tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and why you think that you're qualified to know about
what's
a
going
convention
on, right?
to run during a pandemic. Yeah, tell the people at home who you are. A little more insight
about it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I do know about it. All right. So, there's lots of opinions. There's lots of things out there that are going on. Basically, just to give people an idea of what I do. Obviously, we're all here for the same reason. So I run Saratoga Comic-Con. I have to do it twice a year because it's largest one in upstate New York. Then I also run Plattsburgh, Mid-Hudson Comic-Con, and the new Vermont Pop Culture Con, which comes out next year. So all my shows have been put on hold this year. It's been quite the problem. And, but there's a lot of stuff for should we hold it, should we not? Mm-hmm. And that's a tricky question because you don't want to be rude and say things like, well, yeah, we should hold the convention. And then, it also can make you look like you're saying, well, and I don't care about people's safety and I don't care about people's health, which is not the case at all. There's a lot that happens with a convention. I think it's exceptionally ignorant to just think that I'm somebody that makes money. I'm there to grab the money and run away. And that's all I really care about. And that's what people think about a lot of people running conventions right now.
They think we make millions of dollars and we live in mansions.
Some of us do. I'm not saying I don't, but I'm just saying the point is, I'm just saying that basically, okay, so what goes into a convention besides me planning the whole thing and a few other people too, but it's mostly me doing all 5 shows a year. So, and many other things. So what happens when, I guess we should go into what happens when a convention doesn't happen. Hundreds of people in the convention as vendors and artists lose their work. That's the problem. And there's a lot of people that do have families, they have kids. What gives them the right, or not the right, but what gives someone else the right to tell them they can't set up shop? Meanwhile is, hold on a minute, I have to go to Walmart. oh wait, that person gets to work and we're buying food from that place. Well, that's a necessity. Not everything there. That new stereo, that new video game you bought wasn't a necessity. You know, and there's lots of things that people don't think about, and you know, they don't have an issue doing that, and they're saying, well, that's, you know, that's something that I need. And a lot of us say, okay, unless you're just getting food and maybe clothes when you don't have it, then it's something that you don't need. You know what I mean? People need baby diapers, people need lots of other things to provide for their family, but oh wait, I can't provide for it because I didn't go to work this week, you know, or the unemployment isn't that great. In New York, unemployment's $181 right now, basically. And that's the high part. They got rid of the 600 for right now. How are people with a full-time family supposed to go and support themselves like that? So, you know, with the convention, that's what we're losing. That's what they're losing. Some of these people during a convention at my show will make anywhere from, a few $100s to up to 10,000 or 20,000. So it's like, there goes their weekend, there goes all their money. The thing is, that's just net, you know, like that's well, I mean, well, well, I mean, gross, excuse me, net. I messed that up. Sorry, it's early in the morning, as we all said. But yeah, it's mostly gross, 20 grand, but net, you know, they got to pay for their product, they got to pay for the table, they got to pay for the gas or hotel. So all that stuff, you know, like, I mean, but again, besides all that, point is that they're missing out on all that. And what else is missing out is, you know, we raised a lot of money for suicide prevention, and thanks to the Montreal X-Men and in the Hudson Valley Ghostbusters. And I just, you know, like, suicide rate is up, I believe it's 35% right now. And there's a lot of things that are happening that affect the area. Now, my conventions bring over into the area about anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 of business revenue for the local business in general, not just my convention. We're talking hotels, all the restaurants, and these are other people with families. So it's like everything's connected in this giant system. It's like a big spider web of positive spider web of finance, and everything's lost because of it. And do I believe we should do a convention? Well, before I say yes, I believe hand sanitizer at all places, just like at Walmart or any other store, 6 feet apart. You know, masks are required, gloves if necessary. Most of your cosplayers do wear masks. So that's kind of where I feel, you know, it would help on out a lot. You know, our booths would be, I believe a special setup would be required. Booths.
Now, I knew we were just doing introductions at this point, and you kind of have already gone down this rabbit hole. But let me ask you the question.
Sorry, he told me to tell everybody about the thing.
No.
I can't say
have you been to a convention in the pandemic yet?
I have not, but I meant to. There's one this weekend, and I can't go because I'm in Maine right now on vacation. But
just curious.
The thing is, oh no, I wanted to, but everybody keeps saying they're really great, and then I looked at the pictures and I'm like, are these pictures in the morning at like 10 a.m. before anybody gets there? I'm just trying to figure out how they look. I don't even know like why I haven't seen pictures of the full conventions. But one other thing that I was just going to say about my convention finishing on up is that we would put curtains to separate the vendor booths too, you know. And so, and if somebody, you know, make sure you're at least trying to sanitize products that people are touching, or you could just have signs that say, please do not touch, you know, like just look. And that would be an extremely safe way, more safe than Walmart. I mean, we're talking people that are like, oh, I'm going to do I'm not going to shop there, I'm going to just order online and pick it on up. I've seen people, and I worked in retail 20 years, I'm not stupid. I've seen people also put the stuff in the cart that they're getting for you. They don't wear gloves. They wear their mask on, but they're not wearing gloves. So they're putting, so all that stuff they're touching, they put in your cart, and you just brought it home, and you don't know if they have COVID or not. So, I mean, and then there's 3 people that touch your food on the shelf before you even pick it on up. So my point is, for a convention, I think we can do it a lot safer than the grocery stores. So yes, I do think we can do it. Yeah.
So here's my thing. I will tell you that I'm very we shouldn't. I don't think we should have a convention during a pandemic right now. I feel like it's too risky to get because let me put it this way: you can't trust humans. There's always that human element of, you know, you can try as you might to make people do the things or follow the requirements or do what you feel that they should do to keep others safe. I think the other reason too is, and I'll ask, and I'm sorry, Dakota, we will definitely get to you in a second. I didn't want to leave you out there.
Talking to me.
I don't know who these other guys are yet.
I will say real quick, Dakota's down here. He's a paramedic. He is also in New York. And he's also here to give us his professional opinion on whether or not they should happen. And he's also here to give us some information about Days of the Dead as well. So thank you, Dakota, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys all for showing up.
But I want to say that I not only are you responsible for the lives of and the risk of your attendees, you're also responsible for the risk of the celebrities that you bring to your conventions as well, and them showing up. Now, I will say that
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick and say you're also responsible for your staff and volunteers who are just as, if not more important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's why the face requirements, all that stuff, just like you would if you were going to Walmart.
Now, are we talking that we're gonna try to social distance people while we're at these? Because I mean, I'll tell you this: I've been to tons of conventions. I mean,
times are better. Time tickets. Don't allow 2,000 to 3,000 people in your convention. Okay, you need to buy a ticket for a certain time. But do you still, that you can go?
But do you still think that it's worth it for vendors to have limited guests and limited attendees?
I would have less guests.
Well, let me benchmark real quick.
Just take away from the vendors' money.
Yeah. So the two of you are talking. Who in this chat has actually, since let's say June of this year? Since June of this year, you've actually set foot in a convention.
I refuse to go to any right now, so no.
Okay, so nobody's actually gone, and okay, so I'm the only one that's. I've been to 4 so far.
Yeah, go ahead.
How are they?
How have they been? How have they been from your firsthand account, Tom?
Well, I want to be introduced to these other guys, so I know I have Saratoga Comic-Con, and I have Days of the Dead. And then who's the other dude? Because we have a third.
He's a paramedic. So he's
you're the paramedic person. Perfect. Okay.
Dakota's the paramedic. Victor's the co-host. So
I'm just the commoner, you know. I've got nothing involved. I'm a comic consumer.
Sir, if you're a paramedic, you are an absolute necessary person.
Yes.
And I appreciate the work you've been doing, especially in the past 6 months. It's dumb fact about me personally. I'm a blogger, which is one of the key things here. And I had to blog a few months ago. End of July, I got in a very horrible traffic accident and got hauled out to a trauma unit. I still can't extend my arm. I got scars everywhere from a motorcycle accident.
It's crazy.
So yeah, I have the highest respect for paramedics. Oh, they just saved my life a couple months ago. But talking to the conversation at hand, so we're talking about, and there seems to be a split divide on should we run conventions, should we not run conventions?
Yes. And
the reality of it is, and again, like I said, full disclosure, this is technically my full-time job. This is what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. And the answer is we're going to have to find a way to do conventions because this isn't going away. And hopefully the paramedic will back me up on this one with medical background. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but a virus doesn't just disappear. Even if we get vaccinated, we have a quote unquote cure. Yeah, we're still going to adjust. Somebody rammed planes into 2 buildings in New York City, and thousands of people died. Yeah. Thousands. We are now in something that's killed 200,000 people in our country alone. So I still have to take off my shoes on an airplane from 20 years ago for thousands of people dying. If there's not the expectation that all of our travel and all of our expectations for mass gatherings is going to change, then we're naive. So I've seen 4 shows so far. The first show I went to tried to come out of the gate far too early, and it was in June of this year. And when they attempted it, it was a toy show. And I went there curious as what they were going to put into place. And when I got there, there was a sign on the building itself that says, please maintain social distancing 6 feet apart. That's it. Mm-hmm. So I sat in my car, obviously nervous to deal with this. I lathered myself in antibacterial, which really doesn't do anything for this virus, but, washed my hands 100 times till they were raw. Yeah. Had my nice mask on. And when I looked at the entrance, I counted about 7 people out there, and 3 were in masks, 4 weren't. So I'm like, okay, so I guess there's no stipulation. So when I walked in and checked, I got my watch, or got my wristband, gave them money. And I asked the guy, like, seriously, I'm like, hey, just a quick question. What safety regulations are in place? And he goes, oh, well, you can only walk northbound when you go through the aisles. And I knew he was being a sarcastic jerk about it. I'm like, okay, so it's one way?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we don't care. We still expect you guys to act like, responsible adults. And I walked into that room and it was, wait, real quick, I need to check. Are we PG-13? What level of swearing am I allowed in this show?
You can go for it, man.
Okay, yeah. So we're asshole to elbow. And I literally just go in and get photos with my phone. And I'm just like, I'll navigate a little bit of this, but I'm not going to stay in here. And I immediately left. And whenever I do, and I've done 4 of these shows, every single time, I book a hotel in town. Mm-hmm. I have extended checkout because of Marriott status. And I go straight back to the hotel and take a shower again and wash my hands. I'm like, I find immediately the bathroom, wash my hands, get there, take another shower, put all the clothes and change, because you can't be overcautious. But the first show that we did in June, no fucks were given. They didn't care. It was just, we're all responsible adults. I'm like, that's irresponsible. Now, the second show I went to was literally a week later. Yeah. And it was a show, and it should be noted at this point, we're dealing with hundreds of people, not thousands.
Right.
So the second show I went to was significantly smaller because I just don't think, marketing was kind of their challenge. But they actually, when we walked in, had attempted stuff. Now, granted, it's, all of us have run shows, or most of us have run shows before. There's a different level of when you're at different levels of the age of your show or the budget of your show. There's that first year con where everything's something that you printed on a piece of paper and taped it on the wall or wrote it with Sharpie and, you put tape down, versus, hey, I printed my nice vinyl step and repeat. Mm-hmm. And the second show we went to, had, taped down color arrows to point. So at least it was better than nothing. Yeah. They had some handwritten signs, like the video game room was exit only. When you walked in their video game room, they had sanitizer there and wipes next to each game station. They had them spaced apart, but nobody was there. So it was an attempt. The third one is the one that got a little more press than anything else, was a show that I personally don't think should, honestly, I don't think anything should have happened, because the supply and demand wasn't there, number one. And number two, it was just summer. We were way too early. But another one that attempted to happen over the summer was normally about a 2,000 person warm body show, okay, in Northeast Florida. And they take place, instead of in a convention center and an expo center. So it's kind of like a fairgrounds building, right?
Sure.
And I went there and they had respaced their aisles so that you had, I think it was about a 10-foot aisle versus, 6-7 feet for ADA.
Yeah.
People were required to wear masks. They were doing temperature checks at the door. They were doing all of the legal disclaimer questions when you came in. Like came in and, before I could park, they're like, have you been near anybody, exposed to anybody with COVID in the past 10 days? All the questions they're going to ask. I'm like, this is awesome. I recorded the whole thing. I'm like, no, you guys are doing a great job. They're like, what's your temperature? I'm like, cool. Don't have it. All right. Go park over here. Go in, put on my mask. Make sure you have a mask, buy a wristband, sanitizer stations everywhere. But it was, again, the quick cobble together what we think is going to work. And they had a very popular Power Rangers actor. And that was their one big actor. And he was the only person. They had this whole row of guests, and the one guest was most popular. And they created a zigzag line that was supposed to be socially distanced. But this goes back to something that you brought up. And, I'm going to, drill a hole in it. You said, hey, it's just like at Walmart when we do this. I don't know what your dealings are with human beings, but one, I just don't go to Walmart. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm a Target guy. Number two is human beings don't read. You can put 100 signs in front of them, and they're not going to read. You can be like, oh, here's my most explicit instructions. And they're going to be like, oh, I never saw the 10 signs, And so the problem was nobody's paying attention. And you had people on top of each other in this line to meet this Power Ranger clumped up, and nobody doing line management or telling people to do stuff. So, in Florida, I do have the advantage. We have our theme parks open, and I got to go to a preview at Disney before they opened, because they were the people that we always steal from here of, oh, how are they doing it? Oh, we should do that too. Because our line management in our state is amazing, because we get our volunteers and staff from, Universal or Disney.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But what they did, and it was proof positive of this, and this is the missing piece, and this is going to be the challenge, hey, I have all these rules in place. You know, I'm running my giant Comic-Con and here's my rules. Here, don't do this, stay apart. One, people are only going to follow the rules if they feel like it. I mean, you know that when you know, say, I don't know how many anime kids you have at your shows, but at anime cons, you know, good luck telling them not to run in the halls or not to sit down on the ground and clump, you know, it's in the rules. Oh, I'm sorry, whatever, they're going to ignore you. But number two, it's the manpower required in order to enforce these things. So that example I used with the guest is the perfect one, which is technically they had this set up correctly. The guest themselves was wearing a mask, taking photos with people, right? They had the little spaces on the ground when you were there that said, hey, you know, X here, and a sign up front because they couldn't afford full circles that said 6 feet apart. So it's just stay 6 feet apart and then X's everywhere.
Right.
And so they had the framework there, but what they were missing, and this is where all of us are going to have challenges as promoters and runners, was there needed to be a human being with effective communication skills. Because all that's going to happen, and I think the paramedic will back me up on this one, is 75% of the people, you know, I believe the glass is half full, are good people and are just going to listen. 25% of your Karens or your entitled people that are going to push back on you, like, who are you in charge of this? Oh, who are you? Well, I want the guy running the con to tell me to fucking move, man. No, go fuck yourself and stand on the X. But the problem is I can't say that to people. I have to go, sir, I understand. And if you don't have one, a person there in the first place, and then two, a person with strong communication skills, that's where escalation is going to happen.
Absolutely.
So getting back to you know, the 3 cons. So one, shouldn't have happened. There was no social distancing protocol, no nothing, and that was in June of this year. Right afterwards, lots of it in place, but the people weren't there. And then the third one was normally a couple of thousand people show. You know, I've been to the show in the past. It's not huge, but they draw at least 2,000 warm bodies by estimate, and there was hundreds there at best. You know, they probably cycled through, by my math, when I was there, maybe 600 unique bodies throughout the couple of days they ran. And they attempted to do everything correctly. I mean, the other great thing, to their credit, I took this great photo, and it's actually on the Japan Times in Tokyo last month. They got the photo from me, and I gave them rights of, here was their stage. And then they took sets of chairs, 2 chairs at a time, 6 feet apart. So what was normally a 500 person seating room was a 150 person seating room. So that you could sit there in groups of 2 or just by yourself that were distanced. And is that something we're gonna have to look at? And then there's a whole world of it. So, you know, wrapping this back up of, you know, who's been to a con? I've been to 4 of them. And then I went to one 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And it's the article I sent you. And I went to it because it was the people who ran the show in June. And I wanted to see, oh, hey, we're 100 and something days later. I wonder if anything's changed. And spoiler alert, nothing had changed.
Nothing. Yeah, I saw that.
They had nothing in place from their convention. They were like, well, the hotel says you have to wear a mask. And their attitude was, well, that's not our job to enforce. And so I walked around and went, hey, there's people without a mask. But it's because their staff doesn't want to enforce it, so they don't give a shit.
So I want to touch on that real quick too, because I know Samuel, you had mentioned the Walmart scenario. You know, I unfortunately have been to Walmart a couple times throughout this pandemic. Like Tom, I'm a Target guy through and through. But anyway,
okay, well, Target, Walmart, CVS.
But as far as enforcing it, now my biggest problem with retail places, I have about 17 years in retail experience myself, retail management, retail experience, is the enforcing. You know, you have these signs on these retail stores to say, what do they always say? You know, your mask required upon entry, right? And then what do you see people do? They come in, they shop around, then they get to an aisle where they think no one's watching them, and they take their mask off. They take their fucking mask off, right? So my problem, I guess kind of depends on where you're at.
It's mostly your hands.
That's what it's going to be.
It's that, and then touching the product. That's what it really is, man.
But
it's not like the mask is great,
but my biggest problem,
your hands.
But my biggest problem is the enforcing of this thing. And you've got retailers who are saying, "Oh, we're telling our employees don't enforce it, don't kick them out." So my question for both of you gentlemen is, and then we'll get to Dakota after this question, is how do you guys feel about if you're going to charge attendees to go to your shows during a pandemic where they have to wear a mask, they have to do all this shit to be protected, and they are not doing it? Are you going to kick people the fuck out of your convention? Are you going to kick them out? Because I would say
that's exactly what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it right to their face. I'll do it myself. My staff is very well organized. The city center in Saratoga is very well organized. I mean, we run a very strict convention in general. You have to be a micromanager in order to have a good show. It sounds like the one the guy was talking about there, that one sounds like a disaster, and like people maybe could have cared less. and that they could have cared, and that they could have cared less. I mean, we're gonna be more stricter than a Walmart or Target or wherever you want to go.
Let me interject this real quick. I want to point out that nobody doesn't care. There are people that don't care. And when you said that he could care less, or I'm assuming it's a he, which is sexist, unfortunately, they couldn't care less. But the reality of it is, their caring is in a different direction. And the stance of these shows is, well, I care about your rights. You have the right to choose to wear a mask. And they're just as passionate about those of us that follow science go, well, I'm just as passionate about wearing the mask to protect myself and others. So there's caring on all ends. It's just what you care about.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was referring to like there was nobody, like there wasn't enough staffing, like the Power Ranger line. We have people, we have a group that is specifically for the guest stars. This is before the pandemic. Like we have a group that's all about the organization of our show. So I'm, basically if we see people out there masked, I've been in stores. Now there's probably been, I guarantee you, we all know there's been instances where people have maybe not cared or they didn't see them. That's going to happen. You can't control that. But again, did you just go to Target and pick something up that someone touched with COVID and it's in your house right now and you have it on your hands? I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I got to remember my job and the conventioner's job. Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I think they're similar, but the point is our jobs are basically, retail, but our retail thing is like on the weekends, like it's a convention on the weekend. It is basically a retail convention. It's a giant Walmart and saying, hey, instead of having to go to Amazon and all this other stuff, you want to meet up with your friends and all that, we have a 2-day convention. All this special stuff is going to be there. We're gonna have guest stars, panels, all that stuff. It's like a it's its own special event. And the thing is that we're basically running a retail job. So yes, keep all the same CDC guidelines.
You're bringing up something. Let me ask you a question then, so we can clarify and benchmark this conversation correctly. Yes. So you're using like Target and Walmart as an example, and we're all talking about when we run our shows. So you said, like, I'm looking at your site and it's November 2020, but you said that one's not happening, correct?
No, it's not. No.
So you haven't already. So here's my two questions, which I think are going to impact how we're all thinking about this, or hopefully at least draw the discussion. Number one is, do you have volunteers, or is everybody who operates your convention paid? Are you a paid operation, or do you have volunteers?
Both.
Okay, so you have, but no, it's one or the other. So you have volunteers. Not everybody is paid. Correct. Okay. Number two is, if you have volunteers and you're asking volunteers to volunteer during a pandemic, are you going to make them sign, an indemnification that they can't sue you if you're going to get COVID working? Because the example we're using right now is, hey, I work at Walmart, I work in retail. These are paid employees that are taking upon them a certain level of risk and understanding when they go there. When I go to Walt Disney World, there's signs everywhere. You are accepting the risk of coming here to COVID. If you have volunteers that are supposed to be your management and enforcement of staff, and they're strictly volunteers, and they're not getting any sort of compensation, are you going to make them sign an indemnification? Because now it's like, hey, not only do I need you to donate your time to run my convention, because like I said, it's retail, it's got to make money. But number two, I want you to say you're never going to sue me if you get sick while volunteering for me. And then when you come to that point, which you haven't yet, I haven't either, but I've talked to people who have, because I've talked to cons, getting people to volunteer under those auspices is a challenging conversation and a slippery slope.
That has to be a tough conversation to have. Yeah. I mean, that's
let's ask Dakota. Let's ask Dakota real quick.
Let's get Dakota in here.
What's the risk factor there, Dakota?
Let's hear from the paramedic. Go for it.
There is a huge risk. You got to look at volunteer EMS too, because that is a thing. If a volunteer EMT gets on the ambulance, are they going to be expected to deal with a COVID patient? And the answer is yes. And do we make those people sign a form? No, because it's part of the job. That's what they're to expect. So if you're going to have volunteers for cons volunteer and signed paperwork in regards to, not suing, that's a great idea legally, but they have to know what they're getting into. Right now, there's, as of this morning, there's 8,145,000 confirmed cases of COVID in the United States. So 8,145,000. Out of those, 221,000 have died. So compared to other viruses, realistically, it's kind of the same. If you look at the flu, if you look at other viruses, the death rate is either less or about the same. The one thing that I'm going to say that pisses a lot of people off is a lot of these numbers are beefed, and I can say that because earlier this year, I had a patient die in a car accident, and the New York State Department of Health ruled their death COVID. Explain that to me.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened to my friend.
That's crazy.
So the numbers that you're seeing are a little beefed. I have had contact with dozens of COVID patients, and I have never gotten it just by wearing masks and gloves.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
They work.
Yeah.
They do work. Yeah.
They work. So the problem in the US right now is a lot of people say, this is fake. I don't give a fuck. And then the other half are like, well, science doesn't lie.
No.
And science doesn't lie. But at the same time, politics do.
And that's the thing
makes
too.
It tough, man.
And that's the thing too is that this is a of course, when it comes to doing a convention in a pandemic, it's going to be a regional thing. And the unfortunate part is, yes, this has become a political issue, which really sucks.
And it shouldn't have.
And it shouldn't be. This is not about politics. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Who cares? This is a virus. It's real. It's not fake. It's not a hoax. It's not all that shit.
So I will say that,
I mean, that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, for sure. I will say that, for up, at least in my area in New York, I'm about an hour north of Saratoga. So I get the,
cool.
the,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm in Lake George.
I didn't know where you.
There you go,
yeah. No, you're only 20 minutes.
So this region, businesses are dying because of COVID. And what do? Do you let your business die, or do you find a way to say, fuck you, and I'm saving my life here? And if I was a con owner, I don't run cons. Apart from being in EMS, I am very involved in DJing and music production. That's the other part of why I'm here. Businesses are dying in upstate New York, and I assume it's happening all over the country. So
these are people's families. These are people
exactly.
Who have kids. It's not just me. I have a child. He's in the other room. But it's like it's not just me. Think of all the other hundreds of thousands of people. Like I said, it's a spider web. Everyone's connected. I don't have a show. The restaurants and in the downtown Saratoga doesn't get $500,000 every show. Sure. People say, oh well, whatever. It's like, no, that's people's lives. That's how.
So I mean, a part of the problem too is the people are saying, this virus should not circle around the economy. You're right. It shouldn't. But people are losing jobs. They're becoming homeless. They're losing everything because of this. How long do we sit here with our thumbs up our ass waiting for this to either pass? Because like you said in the beginning, this is not going to pass. This is going to be a yearly thing. And get ready, because like a yearly flu shot, you're going to have to get a yearly COVID shot, because there is going to be a different strain of coronavirus every single year from here on out. Same thing with the swine flu. It's not as popular now, but there is a different strain of swine flu every single year. So,
well, you're being very analytical about this, and we have to be. And unfortunately, again, over the summer, I did a lot of interviews with media locally in Florida and then also in Japan. And the one statement I made that took off a little bit, and I'm going to stick to it again now, is we are experiencing within, I said pop culture events, but this applies to mass gatherings. You're a DJ. So nightclubs, anything. We're in the midst of Darwinism in action. And Darwinism teaches us that one of three things is going to happen, which is 30%, in our industry of pop culture cons, 30% of the conventions, 1/3 of the conventions are going to be fine. They're owned by Reed Pop, Informa Pop Culture. They're these conglomerates or these larger shows that have the coffers to weather the storm.
Yeah.
Peak apex predators, they're going to be fine. Then you have the lower end, which is a lot of your mom and pop shows. They own one show, they own a couple shows, or they're just the local volunteer one, and those are the ones that are going to die. We have
which
one
is
of the companies,
unfortunate.
But it's true. One of the companies I own is a company called Talent for Cons, which is a talent booking company. It represents about 100 actors, and we took advantage of the off season of no conventions, and I put them to work on projects. And in North America, just North America in 2019, there were over 1,400 events that would be classified as a pop culture event, comic book, anime, something like that, right? Right. So there's 1,400. So rounded up to 1,500. That means by the time we get back up and running, 500 of those are gone. So we have apex, your big ones are going to live, lower end, they're going to die. And then there are a number of us that are right in the middle. And, what you described is correct, which is Darwinism is evolution. We're going to have to change. So while I feel the empathy of businesses are closing, trust me, my wife works for a small business. Technically, my company is defined as a small business. However, there's a level of stagnation that's happened within the United States, and we're in a free market. And people have blindly just, gone, Walmart's a great example of, and Amazon of, hey, I'm going to pay my employees a barely livable wage so that they can get food stamps. But at the same time, we're raking in millions of profits. And now we're seeing, because of that, the ones that didn't insulate or build for that, businesses are failing. So what does that mean? Again, it's harsh, it's cruel, it's Darwinistic though, of a lot are going to fall. A lot aren't going to come back. A lot are going to shift, but the ones that do come back, we're going to see a much different landscape in the coming years of how these businesses are built.
Absolutely.
And built to sustain long-term, because once they've lived through this, and we all live through this, we're not going to have we're not going to have a plan for this anymore. We have to be able to plan for it. The biggest thing, and the con owners here can jump in on this, is we all suddenly had to, when we realized we might have to cancel some of our events, suddenly we were all going through the fine print of our insurance policies. And how many of us actually ever thought one day, I know I didn't, I was like, oh, where's my pandemic, that's act of God, right?
Coverage.
Act of God, right?
Yeah, and then my insurance company going, no, that's not an act of God. That's an act of dumb shit humans.
Yeah,
so it's not covered. They're like, oh, you could have bought pandemic coverage, and they're like, who the fuck buys pandemic? No shit. I do now, and we all do, Yeah. But prior to COVID, it wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing. Yeah.
The thing about it is it really sucks too that we are in the country that we're in, considering the government has done a very piss poor job of responding to this as well. And that sucks for business owners, because I know a lot of people who are business owners. I know a lot of showrunners that had decided that they said, fuck this, we're not going to do it. We can't, we don't know if the risk is great enough for us to try to even hold a convention or not. Right. Because we don't want to be the next super spreader event, that the news is talking about, and then you're screwed. Press, right? Right. So I mean, there's that aspect of it, right? Of getting that negative attention to do this sort of thing. So I mean, yes, Tom, you're absolutely right that after this is all said and done, things are the landscape of the convention scene and the landscape of life in general as we know it is going to be completely different, and it better fucking be. Because I better be able to go to these conventions, and there needs to be some definite rules in place. Just like you put, you're still 20 years later taking your fucking shoes off before you get on a plane. That's not going to change, right?
Well, you bring that up. That's one of the best points I pointed out to people that, and this is my looking into a crystal ball. I remember working, because I do like shows all over the world. I remember having to wrap up a show once and being sick as a dog. We all get con crud, right? And you have your con crud, and you're like, oh shit.
Yes.
Yep.
Con flu, that's the thing, I got it in San Diego.
And I've got to get from point A to point B again. And I remember I am dying fever, but I've got to get on this plane to get home and do stuff. So I'd go to the airport and be like, oh, you look like shit, sir. I'm like, oh, I feel like shit, sir. And they're like, you know what? We're going to hook you up. Either, I get my free up, they'll hide me in first class away from people and I have to sleep in flight. Or I've had a situation once where they're like, hey, the back couple of rows are empty. We're going to give you your own row. Here's a blanket. And I would just lay down,
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
Now it's going to happen is, and I don't know the answer to this, this is all predictive, is we're going to get to the plane and be like, I don't feel good. Like, oh, sir, because we check everybody's temperature before you get on a plane now. Sorry, sir, your temperature's too high. We can't let you on the plane. So you have to come back in 24 hours, but you are not allowed to fly. And that's a very real possibility. It sounds ridiculous, but tell me 20 years ago that, sir, take off your shoes. You might be a terrorist.
Realistically, that's going to be safe. If you think about it, when do you get sick the most? When you travel, right? So do they effectively clean airplanes? Do they effectively clean trains? So on and so forth. So if you show up to an airport with a fever and they say you can't fly today, that's going to eliminate or hopefully downplay the amount of people who get sick traveling. I mean, realistically, that's not a bad thing at all.
You know, I have a question. I have a question for you and Samuel. Say, for instance, during a convention, you find that 5-10 people have coronavirus while the convention is running. Do you shut it down the whole?
Oh, you better shut that down.
Do you shut it down? Do you just? I mean, what's that like? I mean,
can you make my life hell?
Do you shut it down, and then you know, who's responsible for scrubbing the whole convention down? I mean, who's in charge of the cleaning, you know,
how are you going to find out they have COVID then? Are we going to have on-site tests that are done?
And that was going to be my question. How would you discover without a violation of rights?
But all right, let's switch it up. Let's just say you see someone looking suspiciously sick and sweaty, and you know there's someone in there that's a potential carrier. What would you do in that sense?
I would tell them to leave.
They would have to
call the hazmat. You wouldn't call the hazmat.
I would refund them. I would refund them, and I would just beg, you got to go. You know, but like just in case, or we would honestly, we were gonna have the rule in place of like, if you don't feel well, don't show up. You know, but how many people again are going to obey that?
Yeah.
Well, no. You need to have we have the ultimate rule in all of our events, and that rule is we reserve the right to ask you to leave at any time for any reason. This is a private event.
Right.
So if I feel that you looking sick is making staff, somebody uncomfortable, I apologize for the inconvenience. I will reimburse your parking. I will reimburse your thing, give you a free t-shirt to offset your time. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you to leave at this time. But you know, you should all, if you're running a con, have the private event, ask you to leave at any time for any reason clause in your agreed to. When they buy that ticket, click agreed to.
I guess my question is, why would you even have to go that route? I mean, when we were all younger, mom and dad taught us if you're sick, stay home, right? So if you're sick, why would you even go to a con? Like,
it's because we got dumbass people that are gonna do it anyways. You know, they just don't listen.
Well, I got the con flu in San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, why wouldn't you? But the thing is that. Man, I stayed, you know, I'll be honest. I stayed in my hotel room a couple of days. I was still getting over it. I went because I had to go see the Lord of the Rings guys. But again, this wasn't COVID. I mean, it was just the con flu kind of thing, but I had to go before it was over, and someone else is going to do the same thing. Someone else is going to be like, you know, I'm sick, but I bought this ticket. I don't really want to go see this guest star. They're going to go. That's the problem. So, you know,
but it's an American societal thing, and it's taught at the level of work. I can't miss work if I'm sick.
Yep.
Because then I don't get paid. True. So we have that intrinsic value of time ingrained into our mentality versus the populace. So, you know, one of my favorite adaptive things, you know, again, my specialization is anime and Asian pop culture. I go to Japan once or twice a year, and when the whole we have to wear masks to protect ourselves thing happened, you know, my wife was kidding, and she got all excited because she has a mask I bought her a couple of years ago from Tokyo Disney that was the Cheshire Cat. And it's because in Japan, if you start to feel sick, you wear a mask. It is a normal thing in society. And it's, you know, normal in Asia. Whereas here it's, you know, I'm infringing on your rights. So fuck you. The reality of it is it's because cultural norms are certain ways. So to answer the question, you have a great point. Why the hell should we be having the discussion about, well, are they going to come to the convention if they're sick? Unfortunately, you use the example I just used. I want to meet the guys from the Lord of the Rings. Normally, those experiences are not cheap. You've invested thousands of dollars for the once in a lifetime. Take out the nerd aspect of it, and to mainstream this conversation, I've waited for this concert to happen. How many of us have gone to a rock concert?
True.
You know, oh my God, I've paid, you know, $1,000 for my seats, and you get there and there's somebody sitting a couple of rows down that's like, oh, they're sick as a fucking dog. But you know, and we'd actually praise them, like, but they're not going to miss the concert. God bless them.
I'm glad I'm here.
Go you.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing a shift in the cultural norm of that. Used to be, hey, we praise how tough you were to come out sick. Now it's like, oh, stay the fuck home and get away from me, because we've learned a lot more in this pandemic about that. And
come on, man. If Michael Jordan can play in a flu game, don't you think he could play in a coronavirus game too?
Exactly.
See, that's the kind of shit that you know, gives the wrong impression to people, man.
Yeah, it is. And we've normalized that if you are sick, you shouldn't get better. We've normalized if you're sick, it's, you know, FOMO. I'm going to miss this concert. I'm going to miss out my day of work. I'm going to miss this convention. I might risk passing the flu to the Lord of the Rings actors and they might fucking die, but God damn it, I got to meet them. You know what I mean?
It's a switching. It's
Sorry,
a switching mentality now.
One way to rule them all.
I paid money. I'm Karen.
I paid money. I want to speak to your manager, Tom. I want to speak to your manager right now.
But then that gets back into
organizing this convention.
Here's the dangerous part of this whole conversation. I'm making fun of, and I'm American, you know, but I work in other countries around the world. And I use Asian as a benchmark of, hey, it's normalized there. Wear a mask so we don't get sick. Yeah. The other thing that's normalized in the United States, and the shoe is going to fall, mark my words, is we are a litigious country. And, you know, there's funny, I don't know, I have to watch TikTok. It's my job, because it's my job to know that age demo. And there's TikTok videos that are hilarious. It's like watching TV in the year 2045, and you hear a voice like, and it's like, did you catch COVID during 2020 and were told to go to work because you were an essential worker? Call our law office.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh my God. That when that comes through, it's going to be, you know, oh, you made me, and that's why I brought up with you. Do you have paid staff or do you have volunteers? Oh, I volunteered at a con and I got COVID and the long-term effects weren't known yet, and now I have permanent lung damage. I'm suing you. Is it worth the risk to run a fucking show?
That is,
you don't have all that data yet.
That is an absolute great point that that I had not thought of, because you've got to make these people sign releases and things like that. I mean, because
we don't know the long-term ramifications over it.
Because it's a two-way street. I mean, if a volunteer is gonna still, regardless of what's going on, risk their life, then you should not, by in turn, risk your business because of them. And you need to prepare and make sure that you set yourself up to not, heaven forbid, they get COVID. You lose your business, you get sued out of your ass, and there goes your business right there from one person, right? But I want to move on to Dakota. You're here for another reason. We're going to talk about this real quick. I had done an article back in July about Days of the Dead, and they made some rather bad choices back in July outside of COVID, of course. And I will say that this was one convention that I had seen photos of where they really didn't have sanitization stations, and I think they had like a couple, but they didn't even have sanitizer in them. It was just like, oh yeah, look what we've got, but you can't use it, right?
Just to be clear, Brian, what's the date on this? Just to be clear? This
was back in July. I don't remember the exact date of when Days of the Dead had this convention, but I did an article about it. I pointed out several of the flaws they had from the photos I seen, from the people that I had chatted with, but also about their convention as a whole, their bad business practices, how they've fucked over vendors. And I had actually. Was this in? This was in Indianapolis.
Okay, so it was July 17th.
It was July 17th, yeah. And they had also posted a very controversial photo of a bear that had a face of Robin Williams with the shirt saying "Hang in there," and they didn't apologize for the context of the photo. They just apologized for the photo, which is kind of fucked up. But anyway, Dakota's here because he's one of the people I had been talking to about this even before I wrote this article, and we had talked about a guy that Days of the Dead had hired named DJ Trey. And I know this, Dakota, you had told me about this guy. He's worked at several other conventions. He's even still worked at other conventions after he got fired by Days of the Dead. If you want to go into that Be my guest, man. Tell us about.
So apart from my EMS career, I've been a prominent figure in internet radio, as well as just getting into Twitch in the last couple of years. Back in 2008, I, along with another DJ, founded what was called the Underground DJ Network, and the idea was to bring dance clubs to your living room. In the new day age of streaming and music and that kind of thing. So a lot of my friends at that time were associated with Days of the Dead. And one of those DJs who I was associated with in that network, his name is DJ Trey. So over the past years after that, I kind of backed away, focused on my actual career, the one that pays the bills, and went back in, and stuff just wasn't making sense. All the friends of mine that I had that were part of Days of the Dead are no longer part of it. For reasons why, a lot still won't say. So I did a little bit of investigation talking to people, and this DJ named DJ Trey is a convicted sex offender. I can prove it, and I proved it to Brian.
Yes.
Wow.
And Days of the Dead hires him. They, from what I've been told, knew it, that he was a convicted sex offender. Now, mind you, he was at the last con they had, to the best of my knowledge, and he was convicted on March 1st, 2000. So we're going on 20 years that this guy has been a convicted sex offender. So all the cons that have allowed him to perform at are essentially enabling a registered sex offender to be part of their network and part of their entertainment. To me, that's a little disgusting personally, but what, to each their own. So I kind of just let it go. You know, this dude is an egotistic maniac. That's just who he is. Until the last couple months, he's just started attacking people who even say his name in the word sex offender. He paid almost, from what I've understand, 20 grand to have his name hidden. You can't find his mugshot anymore.
Yeah.
You can't find anything to do with DJ Trey or his real name, sex offender, unless you found it before he paid to have it all hidden.
Yeah.
So this person still to this day is a prominent DJ on Twitch. And if you question him or not essentially attack him, but go after him, he will send people after you and make your life hell. And he's just an egotistical douchebag. And those are the types of people, from what I understand, Days of the Dead hired. And bars around Purdue University still hire this guy.
Wow.
Why?
Now I will tell you, Dakota, I had talked to Adolfo Dorta. He's the former owner, showrunner of Days of the Dead. He actually left a couple of years back. And in my opinion, ever since he left the show's been going downhill ever since then, because it's now owned by Bill Philp, which, by the way, I did invite Bill to come on the show. He has came after me before for going after his convention for their poor business practices, which that's just what I do. It's part of my job. It's nothing personal, dude. It's just business, man. It's just what I do. I would do this. I've done this before at Wizard World. I've done this to other conventions. You're not special, okay? But I did invite him to be on the show, and he didn't respond. So I gave him a shot. No excuses. But I did talk to Adolfo. I have been kind of talking with him, and he did say that I had chatted with him about that, Dakota, while we were talking about it. He told me that they did not know that he was a sex offender. They didn't know. They tried. They did do a background check.
Simple background check. I mean,
they said that he stated that he did a background check and they couldn't find it. So I don't know if it was at the time when he had paid this money off, or you said it was his mother, right? That had paid off.
That's what I understand. It's right here. I mean, that's his mugshot. Yeah. You can't. I mean,
well, I don't know how. I think you kind of told me how you went about finding it, but I tried to find it myself.
It was sent to me by a very former close associate of his.
Let's ask Tom and Sam real quick. How deep do we go into the backgrounds of the volunteers and the workers of the cons?
Yeah.
Well, we're lucky at Green Mustard, and the reason we're lucky is we don't have volunteers. All of my staff are paid. So we treat everybody as a subcontractor. That said, because we operate that way within a contained environment, the background checks we have to run, a lot of it is borderline nepotism. It's family and friends. And if somebody new comes in, we joke we're the mafia. Somebody has to vouch for you, and then we do a check. So
it should be.
We haven't really had to do any deep diving in a while because we haven't had that. That said, what I can address about this, a lot of stuff you guys are talking about, aside from hard facts, is, you guys bring up, well, I heard this, I heard that. Remember, that's all speculatory, number one, except for here's his registered sex offender.
Yeah, and we have that.
But the reality of that piece is we dealt with that problem in Florida years ago. And another show in Atlanta, DragonCon, dealt with the same problem. And in Florida, what happened is we had a person found a convention, and it became a popular event in Florida, and it grew year after year. And as a matter of fact, Wasabi Anime was involved within the first couple of years as they were growing, but we stepped away just because we got a weird vibe. And the true story is literally like, weird vibe, we're leaving. And we had tons of other opportunities growing at that point. And then it came out that the owner of the show had been arrested and then plead to statutory rape, guy in his 30s, and the girl was, I believe, 17. Wow. And he is now a registered sex offender in the state of Florida, on the registry. And the next year the con happened, this was knowledge. And he was still making money from this show. And he continued to make money from that show for years. DragonCon, again, had the same issue with one of their founders and previous owners. And people would go to the show and they would go, hey, look, we made copies of his mugshot and we've hung it up around. And you would see people doing this. But guess what happened to the show? Two things. Jack and shit. It continued to grow because the problems we're discussing, I went to Days of the Dead and there's a registered sex offender that's a DJ. How many registered sex offenders worked on the movie you worked on, you love on TV? I don't know. You don't find out about Kevin Spacey till later. But the reality of it is the layman, the norm, the attendee, 99% of them have no knowledge, no fucks, or want to turn on blinders because they don't want you to take away their happy experience. So where you're describing this, yes, there's always going to be a level of accountability as show owners and promoters that we make sure that we're not putting, our staff, our attendees, and our celebrity guests in volatile situations. I've avoided booking certain celebrities for that reason. We have our staff checked. We have awareness of. Because we've had this situation of, hey, we have this person attending the show and they've been real well. Do you have a police report? No. Then I'm sorry you two hate each other. Next.
Right.
He sent me these. I can show you the screenshot of where he said blah, 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 or she said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, excellent. Did you call the police? Can you show me a police report? Can you show me that the police have intervened, or that you have keep away? No, I don't. Then my hands are tied because then I'm being discriminatory. You know what I mean? And that's the problem.
So I guess my concern would be, for example, I don't know what the age limit for cons are. I'm relatively new to this, but if, there's a 16-year-old that's at the con or is associated with the con, and let's say this person gets with them and then they sue the con, Nope.
This is where you pay very good lawyers. And you make sure that you run your show correctly. And we're very strict on that. We treat our convention like a R-rated movie. So even though I'm an all ages event for, say, Wasabi Con in Jacksonville, Florida, I have so many pissed off kids that show up because I'll have a 16-year-old kid show up and be like, here's my ticket. I bought it online. I'm like, excellent. We need a parent or guardian with you. See that checkbox that says you have one. Well, they're not here. Then you're not getting into the show. Too bad. So the liability piece you talked about there is a very important one that a lot of events sometimes skirt by, which is we will not let you in unless there's a parent or guardian who has taken responsibility for that child being there. So they literally have to, a lot of them will walk up and go, yes, I'm here with them. So they go, okay, cool. So you're taking responsibility for the child. Yes.
Yeah.
And then if they leave, I can't control that they leave.
Right.
But I can control that you have now acknowledged that you are setting your child into this event, a badged event, a private event with your consent, and we've spoken to the adult to give that consent. And if that kid does something stupid afterwards, we have to call the cops so they get involved.
Yeah.
Parental consent has been granted. And one of my staff because my staff confirm, and we're very strict on that.
Yeah.
Trust me. I've dealt with so many screaming kids, and we get eviscerated on the internet. Like, you wouldn't let me in the show. I'm sorry. Right. You are absolutely correct.
These are the rules. You got to follow them.
Right. But sure. to answer your question, what you were bringing up is, what are the age of these kids? My show, we're very strict on this because the primary demographic for anime and video game fans is tween to college.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm dealing with 13 to 25 is my bread and butter. I have outside of there, but that's the main one. But then, demographic shift show to show. You can go to a show like we do work for a show called Gen Con, which is the largest tabletop gaming convention.
Yep. Been there.
And their predominant demographic is single male 40s. Works in the tech sector.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. And so I run anime for them. So I'm literally I have the section where you're dropping your kids off while you go play games.
Yeah.
But there is still that level, we're talking about that part of it. There is accountability and responsibility, but there is some of it. There is a line though of how much of it are you responsible. I can't tell you that, if I have even a 1,000 person show, somebody can buy a ticket and be a registered sex offender. They can walk into Disney. You can't stop them. You know what I mean? Right. So there's that. Now employing them, that's another circumstance. Failure to understand that you've employed them, or something like that. It's not going to affect the mainstream, but it's it's a little bit of responsibility. And like I said, I don't know anything about Days of the Dead except for that one photo, which I'm going to be offended because I'm a huge Robin Williams fan. So fuck the guy who made that. But humor is humor, and whatever they want to do. But I don't know any of the drama of the show. I don't know this DJ. But what I do know is when we have conversations about that, even the sex offender I'm talking about. This guy is a registered sex offender. I can show you. And whenever people are like, well, I heard blah, blah, blah. And all I do is go, here's a link.
Right.
Wouldn't say what he did. That's all the information you need.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I did with Brian. Brian was like, are you sure? And I
because it's not easy. You can't access it because that's the thing. Like I looked, I tried, I have multiple ways of doing background checks myself. And
you can't find it.
I couldn't find it. So when you showed me that, I was like, how the hell did you get this? I don't know, but
here's the question about all this though, and I'm very curious to know this. My understanding was once you're registered as a sex offender, that's already public knowledge and you should be able to find that.
Correct.
So from what I understand, researching this myself, he lives in the state of Indiana. From what I understand, in Indiana, it depends on the level. So if you're under, like, there's a level 1, 2, or 3 sex offender. So if you're under a certain level, you can get it wiped completely, like it never happened, which is wrong in my opinion. But that's what I understand happened.
Yeah. So let's touch base back on the pandemic conversation. Now you had brought up, Tom, Gen Con. Gen Con is a mass con. It's like thousands, hundreds of thousands,
65 to 70,000 people
attend. How in the hell are we ever going to have these big type cons come back with a pandemic going on, and this virus isn't going to go away anytime soon? It's not just gonna, like you said, it's not going to just disappear tomorrow, right? We know that. But how do we have mass cons like San Diego Comic-Con, for instance, Gen Con, things of that nature? How are they going to be able to?
I don't think you can.
Well, I can't speak for Gen Con because we work with them, but I can't spill beans on them. But what I can say is this: you said they can't, but the reality is we're going to have to find a way to do it. And has anybody solved that code yet? No. The one piece that's been a consistent part of conversation, and I'm gonna plug myself here for a second. Convention Nerds, we interview people every Tuesday from a specific convention, and we choose them. And we managed to score in a couple of weeks. We're going to have LA Comic-Con come on the show. So nice. I don't know how familiar you are, but LA Comic-Con, up until a few days ago, was still slated to happen in December.
Wow.
And the reason they were is months in advance, they had announced that they were working towards solutions. They had worked out what they felt were viable solutions to do this. And these are things I want to hear from them when we talk in a few weeks.
Absolutely.
But the main thing that seems to be the direction that we're all going is we have all lived in a world of what is my, and again, the other guys who've run cons can speak to this too. Okay, cool. here's my room setup. Oh, this is an event room. I have a riser. Excellent. I have a screen, stage, table, speakers. How much square footage does that take? Cool. Cut that out of my equation. Now, what's the fire marshal number for this room offset by this? How many bodies can I shove in there?
Yeah.
So what we're working towards now, and what the world seems to be going towards, is what is that capacity? But instead of asshole to elbow, now what is that number where people can safely interact, or more safely? It is never going to be fully safe ever again. And honestly, let's be honest, we never were. I mean, you brought up a great point about people cleaning stuff. My wife and I joke all the time of the, look how hard we are cleaning everything. And I'm like, asshole, why weren't you doing that in the first place? So why were we? I've been to Japan. They're awesome. Why are we never that clean in the States anyway? So we're our cleanliness standards are changing. Not a bad thing. Just like we talked about the travel thing, our travel restrictions: don't get on the plane while you're sick. I'm going to be pissed when it happens to me, because it's going to happen to me. I'm going to be like, oh shit, I have a cold, but I've got to be in whatever to appear on stage for this convention. Sure. Oh fuck, I can't because I have a cold. And that now becomes a viable reason, which we have to, the trickle down effect of that is talent contracts, anything, contractors. Now there has to be a clause in there to cover our ass.
Absolutely.
But the core answer is going to be, to their credit, LA Comic-Con spelled it out pretty clearly, was at the Los Angeles Convention Center, they're normally a 50,000 person show. Okay. And then I'll even use one of the shows I work with, MegaCon in Orlando, Florida, is a 100,000 person show. The backup plan that Informa had in place and we were part of was that they were going to do a show called MegaCon Limited Edition. And we liked the name Limited Edition because it was funny, but it also spelled out what we were doing, which was taking space for 100,000 people and only selling 25,000 tickets.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, and where you're going to see the shift in this entire world operation is going to be, hey, I'm used to running a show for, 50,000 people attending my show. Now I have to create a ecosystem in a show that will support 12,000 people, 12.5 versus those 50. And here's the hard part. And this is the thing that nobody's talking about, because we're in a feast or famine economy right now. Right now, everybody's desperate just to get money in the bank. So let me sell whatever I can. Once everything stabilizes, again, Tom's crystal ball, and I'm glad it's on record, so you can come back and watch this later. Convention ticket prices are about to go up. Vendor space booths are going to become more expensive. The cost of flying, the cost of anything is going to go up, because we're going to have to offer it to fewer people, but we're still going to have to cover the same amount of bills. And then to amplify that, convention centers, host properties, hotels have all lost money. They're going to raise their prices. So where I was used to paying $40, $50 for my one day at the convention, now it just became normal to pay $75, $80 for a one-day convention, to go for one day, because it's all going to come down to, in a couple of years, the economy is going to, never bounce back. It's going to take time to recover from this. Obviously, I mean, we had a pretty big dip, but when it does, it's going to become even harder to crawl out of that hole, because in order to be sustainable, everything's going to raise prices. The world's going to become a lot more expensive real soon. Yeah. And that's the solution. It's an unfortunate double-edged sword, is how are conventions going to be able to come back and post-pandemic? We're all going to do, here's my show, and we're going to have to start being more transparent about, and here's the number of tickets I sell. That's it. I have a capped capacity. I'm clear that only so many people can get into my show. I
know, Scott, you're driving down there, or Samuel, I know you're driving down there, but what, if you could speak to if you're able to speak to what Tom said about the prices and stuff like that, do you as a con runner and a show owner, do you suspect that you're going to raise? Are you able to say if you're going to raise your prices for your ticket?
Only if, honestly, I would probably keep, if this thing, I mean, people are saying it's never going to go away, but if it becomes like the flu, then you can start to control it, as well. I mean, where'd SARS go? Where'd all these other things go? Nobody knows. So you can't put your finger on it and say this is going to be us the rest of our lives. Maybe it will. I don't know. You can't say that, because again, where's SARS? And where's some of the other viruses? Where's the swine flu? So basically, Yeah, maybe you might have to get a shot every year. But with the ticket pricing, if we have to end up doing time tickets, I'd probably keep my prices the same as you would be there for the whole day. And then, you know what I'm saying? And then but it would have to be timed. So that's honestly the way I'm gonna probably have to do that, just financially, or maybe lower it a little bit. I can afford that because the way my convention is run and how the size of it,
Sure.
I'm able to lower my ticket prices a little bit. I'm not, I get paid what I get paid. I'm not somebody that has a set salary to where it's like, oh, I need $500,000, per convention, or else we got to close the thing down.
Yeah.
But let me jump in here. You're being optimistic
Yeah.
about the fact. What happens when, and this is going to happen. What happens when you're going to see a spike, not your gradual yearly increase that happens in multi-year shows, but your convention center is going to spike their cost. Your insurance is going to spike their cost. Yeah. Suddenly your vendors are like, oh, I've got your vendors, if you use contractors for load in, load out, Freeman, any of these companies, now their insurance costs have gone up and they've had to spike their numbers. So you can try to say that you're not going to raise your ticket prices, but if all of your expenses across the board are suddenly going up, you're going to have to market adjust at some point.
You got some thoughts on that, Samuel?
Sorry, guys. I have not really great reception where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah, some stuff does go up. Obviously, I mean, my convention buildings go up every yearly anyways. So, I mean, I already know about, finances and all that for myself. But the thing is that, yeah, things are going to spike, but, not to the point of where we couldn't do a convention. Off of one of my conventions, I can live for 2 years, usually, without ever having to work again. So, pretty good with money, but, I don't want to hurt the fans too, as well. Some of these people, they're, especially when you're in a company where it's, there's a lot of people on the board and it's run by a whole board. The problem is that, a lot of these people want to keep increasing their pay. So then the fans get screwed over. So for me, I run things a little bit differently.
Let me ask you this, Samuel. What is it that, because you seem really confident about your the economy of your shows, the way you're staffing and handling the pandemic and things like that. What would you say that you're doing exceptionally well to be able to maintain the state of? You said you're good with your money. I want to kind of like, what is it that makes you so confident about that the economy of your con isn't going to tank, for instance, due to a pandemic? What makes you so certain that you're not going to have to worry about that? Like, what is it that you guys are going to do about that?
Samuel, is running the con your full-time job, or is this like your side hustle?
Yeah.
No,
absolutely. Side hustle. Like, you don't run 5 shows as a side hustle, unless you're insane.
Yeah.
Okay. No. So so running Saratoga Comic-Con and those events is your full-time job.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So what is it about you that makes you think that you're not going to have to worry so much about these economic differences within a pandemic when it comes to con?
Well, I know somebody with a, just a scientific mind would think one way, but for me, I think more along the spiritual lines, and in that we believe we have a different system. So, and I can't get into that without opening up a whole nother can of worms.
Sure.
So, but
that's understandable.
Let's just say I know things are going to be okay. And all the worrying and the hands in the air waving, oh, it's going to happen. Okay, that's fine. But it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help anyone else. And thing is no one really knows what's going on, and you can't just say what is going to happen, especially when you don't know what is going to happen. But for me, inside, I do know things are going to be okay. So that's kind of the way that goes. I'm not going to delve in too much more of that, why I'm so confident. it is because I am, so it's, I'm not being foolish about it. It's just
Okay.
something that's a whole nother can of worms that would take a whole nother podcast to even talk about. So.
Sure, yeah. Now let me ask you, Dakota, as someone who mostly is an attendee, and then you also.
But I do actually have to go though.
Yeah.
And I know I'm driving, so I've been waiting out. Just didn't want to interrupt you guys, but it's been great talking to you all.
Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great. I really wanted to hear from the guy who had to wake up at like 6 a.m. there.
Yeah, right.
Didn't hear from him yet, man. So I'm gonna go back in the podcast. I want him to have a big spot.
Went brighter,
Yeah, it's funny because I've been watching behind you. Literally, when we started, it was dark, and now the sun is up behind you.
Have a big spot on this. I want to hear his input on it too. So, because I know he had to wake up early and just listen to us over here in the East Coast jabber on. So,
yeah, you can see the room just gradually brighten up.
Yeah, man.
But, all right, guys. Well, I gotta go. But it was great meeting y'all, and hopefully we'll join again.
We'd love to have you back on for sure, man.
All right,
take care and be safe, sir.
Thanks, guys. You too. Bye.
So Dakota, for you, as someone who's you work as a paramedic, you do you're attending. I'm sure you've attended cons. You're not just as a paramedic. I would love to hear from just someone who's we'll say just an attendee, right? You don't really have a lot of this not deep knowledge like Tom, myself, do about cons and the way they're ran and things like that. What are some of your expectations, as we'll just say, as an attendee for conventions moving forward, to try to run and or in some way? I struggle with it, guys, because me personally, I don't think that they should be happening right now.
So it's a little hard for me because I'm in the medical field. So it's like I have my own expectation of what I'd like to see. I like cons. Cons are fun.
Yeah.
I definitely would like to see them continue as long as they can in a safe and legal way. My fear is that some of the local cons around me, which Samuel's in charge of, some of these cities will start to put in ordinances against public gatherings, which they are. Saratoga is, from what I understand. And if that continues and it happens more around the country, it may not be legal to even have a con. So, I mean, you can talk all day about what you can do about social distancing everybody, but is it against ordinance or not? So as long as it's safe and legal, I'm all for it, as long as the con runners figure it out the right way. Me personally, as a EMS provider, I'm not going to go until this thing COVID is close to wrapped up. I mean, it's just, it's the way it's spread. Mass gatherings, period, are not a good idea in my opinion.
But what are some things you want to see these cons do to put in place to make sure that, because let's just face it, we can't unless you don't have a show, you can't prevent people from getting it, right?
Right.
Humans are going to human. They're going to go do things they shouldn't do. Let's face it.
Dakota, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think, and just because this is a discussion among con runners right now.
Yeah.
Do you think, in your position, that we should be running air travel right now?
No.
Air travel.
Okay. So at least you're consistent, because one of our biggest problems as showrunners is we're okay putting 150 people in a contained environment next to each other on seats on an airplane, but I can't run a movie theater.
So like
there's zero consistency.
Like I said earlier in the podcast is, when do you get sick the most? And it's when you travel. Every time I fly somewhere, I get fucking sick. Like it's just, you're in a tin can for 3 hours. Like it's just how it is. And unless you're cleaning it the right way, which we all know they're not, then I mean, whatever. So me personally, what I would like to see in place is, if I was to go to a con, I'd want hand sanitizer. There's a big debate whether hand sanitizer is working for this. It either is or it's not, but
it can't hurt.
Go with that. Right. Can't hurt. So masks definitely needed. Got to have masks. Gloves might not be a bad idea, really. Hand sanitizer everywhere. And if you you need to reduce your ticket sales so you don't have as many people. I mean, that's what I would do.
Here's a question for you, Tom and Dakota. Obviously, there's risks being in a big group. Tom, have you considered doing a virtual con? And Dakota, is that something you would be interested in attending?
I'm on record in a number of interviews stating there is no such thing as a virtual convention. I hate that term. Until we're living in Ernie Klein's Oasis, that shit's just not going to happen. Yeah. However, you can present a great online experience branded to a convention. So, for example, one of the shows that we own, Wasabi Con in Jacksonville, Florida, was supposed to take place October 3rd and 4th at the Convention Center in Jacksonville. Obviously, we didn't move forward with it. However, what we did is we worked with Visit Jacksonville in the city. We worked with a number of the fan groups in the city, and we put together and ran the entire weekend a Twitch stream because we've learned in our research that live interaction versus pre-recorded is much more engaging with fans. And we ran for 2 days straight, programming every hour of, hey, we did a survey. Here's the top 10 geek businesses in Jacksonville, Florida, brought to you by Visit Jacksonville. Or, hey, one of our local authors just released her first book, my first convention, about a kid's book for her kid. So that was a live stream, but it was an experience. My talent booking company, Talent for Cons, we've partnered with a company called Social Factor. And what we do together is we've worked out a way. You've seen like Wizard World and GalaxyCon and ReadPop are all doing here's your big virtual guest experience. Well, not everybody can run those. And the logistics behind it are a huge undertaking. Yeah. So with Talent for Cons, we just worked with a show called SenchiCon in Alaska. We've created a way as a package for you to do a 1 hour live Q&A with a celebrity and then a 3 hour one-on-one virtual signing where they sign autographs, get it back to it. But again, it's that live interactive component. So is there such thing as a virtual convention? No. And I'm gonna die on my hill for that one. Yeah. But hey, I can do, here's the virtual experience for my fans on Twitch, on Discord, on everything else. Or here's my virtual guest appearance that you can be a part of. But it's never going to replace, and nothing can, again, Oasis. I'm going to the con.
Yeah. So I'm going to weigh on that. So in my other life, I DJ, I do a lot of stuff on Twitch. And as you all know, along with cons, the other industry that's having a really hard time is EDM festivals. And all of the EDM festivals that I usually go to, one of the biggest in New York is Electric Zoo, was canceled this year. So a lot of DJs have teamed up on Twitch and created online music festivals. And I've been a part of 3 of them, and I have a 3 hour slot and I spin, and people love it. It's not the same experience as going to a festival, but turning your living room into a dance floor for a couple hours kind of gets you away from reality. And it's not a bad thing.
We're having to offer an alternative to keep ourselves in the mindset of our fans.
Right.
And, it's a whole other rabbit hole we don't have to go down. But Dakota, I'm assuming you're having challenges now with the new enforcement of the copyright music thing on Twitch that they've brought the hammer down on.
Yep. So DCMA has been a problem for DJs for years. It just is.
Oh yeah.
But I have a friend who does the same thing, and you and I are on the same page of we have to stay connected with fans.
Absolutely.
And luckily we have the infrastructure of an internet to allow for doing so. Prior to doing conventions, I was the entertainment coordinator for City Walk at Universal Studios. So I dealt with DJs, nightclubs. That was my day job back then. But you're never going to recreate being sweaty in the crowd, jumping around. But you're right. You can get, like I said, that experience. So having hey, I'm getting a live stream of a DJ, and it's not, and I think you and I hope are on the same page of this. I am not a fan. I mean, I've watched it, but San Diego Comic-Con did. Look at these amazing panels we have, all pre-recorded, and now it's just going live on YouTube.
It's not interactive.
Exactly. And when you're DJing, you have people in a little chat that are going, "Oh my God, this is awesome," or "Hey, you suck." You know what? Even if I suck, somebody's telling me I suck, and I'm okay with that.
What I've learned is going from a live audience in front of you to a chat room, there's no difference as long as you stay engaged with them. Absolutely. So if people come into my chat room and they say, "Hey, Dak, I want to hear this new David Guetta song." No problem. Fuck it. Hit play. it's interactive with them, and
Yeah,
they love
man.
it. Like,
Yeah, you know, the thing, my experience with that Victor can share in this with us. We did our show live on a virtual convention, and which one of our episodes we go into the reviewing it, because what I do also is I review conventions. That's part of what I do for a living, and which sucks because I decided, you know what, I just don't think I can risk. I don't want to take that risk of trying to do that this year. But we did a virtual convention, which, you know, Tom, you're right. I don't believe in virtual conventions either. It's just not the same. You cannot replace the human interaction.
Let me be clear. I love, you know, people, you know, porn is great, but it's never going to replace the real thing.
That's a great analogy.
That's a good analogy.
I'm going to use that.
It's a true story, though, man.
We did this live episode, and it was not. It was as much as I love I'm really good friends with the showrunner. I am also a believer in giving fair criticism. I don't care who the fuck you are, friend or not, right? So, their convention was pretty much a disaster. They had a mix of pre-recorded material and live material, which made no fucking sense whatsoever. We were using StreamYard for our show, which has never really seemed to work well in the numerous times I've tried using it. We couldn't really see the chat. They didn't have their merch on their you had to go to a Facebook group and a link to get to their merch, which their merch wasn't even on their website, which made no sense whatsoever. So I mean, it was bad. And I had talked to the showrunner. We've had him on before, Carl, great guy. And you know, they were very humbled by my review, and I was very you know, I can be pretty cruel, I guess, but I don't see it that way. It's just an opinion. My opinion is, if you like it, if you don't like it, fine. But like, the thing about these virtual cons is, you know, I get that they're trying. At least they're trying, right? I mean, you got to give them some credit. And instead of just saying, look, we're not going to do anything for the fans, they're trying to do something. But you have to still do it right. You have to get it right, though. You can't just, you know, you can't just throw shit up on a board and say, okay, here's our convention, here's our virtual con. You know, you got to actually do it right. So, you know,
well, Dakota's the pinnacle example of that, which is
absolutely.
A DJ spinning is a DJ spinning. And again, I'm an old guy. Go back to, you know, the age of radio before the internet. The reason we liked, you know, top 40 stations was one, we want to hear the songs we like, but two, it was the ability to, hi, I'd like to request a song. And that one piece of human interaction is the difference between quick, just turn on Spotify or listen to a show. And what Dakota's doing is entertainment, in the fact that he, as a person and an entity, is part of that equation, connecting with the audience. The difference is now we're connecting to the audience, you know, through fiber versus, hey, you know, you're 6 feet away from me. And there's something to be said for that. It is. And you hit the nail on the head. With you know, Brian, it is important to make sure our fans know that we know they're there, and to remind them that we are here by providing something. And it's got to be something. And the more that we can connect to them with that something, the more that, you know, and I use this word a lot, the community stays connected, because we are. Fandom is a community. It's its own niche. So
this will be the last thing I want to touch on here before we close out the show is postponing and canceling. Okay. This has been a problem that I've seen this year. I know this pandemic has caused us all to have to try to figure out our lives, right, in different ways. We've had to emulate half of that. A lot of it's, you know, I like to say it's 90% BSing my way through it and 10% actually, you know, researching and doing it. I have noticed, and Tom, you as a showrunner can speak on this. These conventions are waiting until like literally weeks before to postpone these damn cons.
We have to.
And do you have to do that, or is there a reason why that why is it such
There's a very good reason for that.
Close time frame between when a show is starting and deciding to postpone or even cancel it?
Because we are beholden as events to other entities. So when you run a convention, you're not just, it's not like you're a dictator and you get to say how the world works. You have contracts out to actors, you have contractors to vendors, you have contracts to properties, and those are the big ones. So what happens in a lot of these situations is you're effectively playing a game of chicken to see who pulls first. So go back a few years prior to pandemic, there was a show in Hawaii. I forget which one it was, but there was a tsunami that was coming. And everybody's like, you're irresponsible. You should cancel your show. And the convention is like, nope, we're still moving forward. And they were getting yelled at online, eviscerated. How dare you, you're irresponsible. And what the mainstream doesn't know is behind the scenes, the second they publicly say, hey, we want to cancel, they have taken that action. Ergo, their contracts have written so that, oh, you canceled on us? Well, thank you for that lovely deposit you paid that's now refundable. And you're out, by the way, you also owe us damages because you canceled the event. So as it gets closer to the event, they're playing chicken. It's nope, we're going to go through with it. And the convention center like, well, we're waiting for you to cancel, or the convention center is just as stuck. My show is a great example. Our Jacksonville show, we had a conversation. Our show was in October. We had the conversation back in April. We did hey, this is never going to happen because we were all, optimists back then. But if it does, ABC, here's our plan. And they're like, cool, that's good. We won't ever need to use that. But I'm glad we had this conversation and an email was sent, right? We get closer to later in the summer and we're talking to the convention center and there are people that are going, we probably think it's a good idea, but we can't. We can't cancel it. And I'm like, really? Why not? The Republican National Convention.
Oh, yeah.
Really? And it's because the RNC was like, oh, we're going to do it no matter what pandemic. And we're going to do it in Jacksonville, Florida. And they can't turn around and go, yes, we want to be responsible and move you into next year. However, the RNC is going forward and they're an 8,000 person event. So what do you do? So now everybody is stuck because we can't make responsible decisions that we want to make because we are now beholden to other people. And the second the RNC finally pulled the plug, within a week, we were like, cool, what do we do next? And so I've had to, and I have friends and I feel bad, like, on Facebook that are like, fuck this convention. They're not caring. I'm like, that's not how it works. And you need to quit giving them shit because trust me, we as promoters and owners are already stressed. We're already freaking the hell out. And there's very few of us, they are out there, very few of us that are like, well, I need the money, screw this. We are beholden to other parties and cannot usually make those decisions until we're much closer, and we have to act as if the whole time in order for that to work.
Now let me ask you, Tom, are you being transparent with your con attendees though this whole time? Is there some sort of
ask that again, Brian?
Sorry about that. Are you Tom, are you being transparent with your attendees this whole time regarding what you're going to do? Or I know you can't usually give like a firm answer on that, but are you being transparent?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Do you have an attorney?
Yes,
I do. And do you know what my attorney would tell me when I'm speaking publicly about things on a contract? Shut the fuck up.
That's a good point.
So the other problem that escalates it with attendees is we want to turn around and tell what I just told. But prior to that, I couldn't say shit publicly because the second I'm saying, hey, I'm trying to cancel, that can be construed, in a court of laws. Well, they said they wanted to cancel. Oh, boom. Thanks for the deposit. F you.
You're liable for it.
So we cannot respond. So it's twice as frustrating for owners and promoters that are in the position of, we want to tell you everything, but we live in the United States.
We can't.
And we can't. We literally, it's one of those, we can't tell you because the second where there's an email, a conversation, a text, anything, all that has to do, and if it's on the internet, it's forever. Then it's going to show up and be like, hey, we've canceled your show because you have said publicly that you want to cancel your show, and we're keeping this, and you're on the hook for this, or your insurance is now null and void because you canceled versus they canceled. And what happened with the Hawaii show is they waited, and it was literally just a couple of days. And it's because they had to declare a state of emergency for a tsunami, which they can't do until it's on your doorstep, to go, we officially cannot move forward with this event and we're canceling. Oh, and then the con's like, they canceled. I guess we have to cancel now. And that's the reality of it. So cons want to. 95% of the time, we want to. One, we have to keep our mouths shut for legal purposes, and two, we can't until somebody else allows us to.
That's good information, because on the consumer side, we've always thought that they should have just canceled. What's going on? Why are they taking so long?
We want to. All my friends and associates that are in this year, we all want to. It's just behind the scenes, we can't, and it's frustrating as hell. And it's just as stressful for us as it is for the attendee. Trust me.
I'm curious. Do the vendors also know at the same time when you guys make that announcement? Is there some sort of
same rule?
So everybody knows at the same. So everybody finds out when you announce.
Mum's the word. You can't say shit. But
that sucks. It's not your fault. Yeah.
A good show. The shows we did this in our shows when we're gonna make when everything's signed, sealed, and done. This is what happens in order. It's okay. Classified. My convention center and I, or my property and I, have come to our agreement. We're rolling over to next year. The next step is wave one. Contact our celebrity contractors. They are aware. Please keep this under your hat. That's a couple days. Then a couple more days later, step two. Now we're going to let our artists and vendors know, their exhibitors.
Okay.
The problem is, we know that the second you tell them, they do not keep their mouth shut, and within 24 hours, it's I heard on the internet, I have inside info that they're going to cancel. We know, but the courtesy is we're letting you know before we send. Then you send. So you usually send that, and then you wait like 3 to 6 hours. Then you email your pre-registered attendees. Then the next morning, a press release is released. So even when we know we can cancel, from a consumer standpoint, you still have to wait like almost a week for you to find out.
That was
out of respect. We have to go and talk to these other people first. So and again, I cannot reiterate this enough to anybody who watches this and to you as an attendee. Trust me when I say it is just as stressful, just as frustrating, and just as emotionally draining for us not being able to tell you it is for you being frustrated that you aren't being told anything.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that walkthrough, because I've always been wondering. I hadn't had a chance to talk to my buddy about that yet, about how what's the process like for when you cancel and then who you tell first, and then the timeline of that. So thank you, Tom, for providing that timeline of how that works and how it, and when you hate having to cancel any show, but this year's a little bit different, so we have to kind of do things a whole other way. Now, Tom, do you guys have any conventions planned? Did you guys cancel all your cons for this year, or what are you guys doing next? Like, what's your next convention that you guys have planned?
So we have
to follow through with.
Well, I'm pulling up because so our 2021 schedule is constantly changing, and we literally just changed it again a few days ago. So shows that we own. Our next show was after Wasabi Con. We bought a show in Portland, Oregon called Fandom PDX, and it was supposed to run January. I'm in my office. My whiteboard's up here. January 4th and 5th. I'm sorry. January 3rd and 4th, 2021 was supposed to be our next convention. We made the decision about a month ago to forego that and push it later into the year. So we are going to run, just like we said, a Twitch stream for WasabiCon. We're already in pre-production. We're going to do the same thing for the fans in Portland. Because again, the other responsibility, and I can't emphasize this enough, as convention runners, if we're in a city, your Saratoga guy was correct, and all of us who've done this can say we are an impact on our community locally, financially, and everywhere else. And right now, there's only so much we can do. So we try to find a way, like I said, Visit Jacksonville, we worked with to do, hey, let's showcase the local barcades, everything that's open. So like right now, I have my Fandom PDX team going, hey, do me a favor. And this is like the most horrible thing you have to tell somebody to do, but I need you to go through our list of the local businesses that we keep in touch with for, flyer, stuff like that. Please check to see who's still open. And then once you've confirmed that, we're going to do the same thing there, but that's going to happen virtually. But our first Humans Are Going to Be Somewhere event, we're running the anime programming for MegaCon in Orlando, Florida, and that one is set for March 18th through the 21st. However, the new norm in dealing with conventions, and this is public knowledge, they released this week. MegaCon Orlando is a 100,000 person show. It is designed to take place March 18th through the 21st. We still don't know if it's going to be 50% capacity. 100. We don't know. We're too far out. However, as we get closer, if we realize that we cannot go through with that show, we already have secondary dates in September, for September 17th to the 19th for MegaCon limited edition. So if one cancels, we already have the backup. And so we had a couple of other spring shows we've moved. So right now, as it stands, Wasabi Anime, or one of my Wasabi Anime shows, March 18th through the 21st, MegaCon, May 29th through the 30th, Fandom PDX, June 16th through the 20th, Origins Game Fair. July 30th, August 2nd is Calgary Expo. That's normally a spring show. We just moved that to the summer, just in case. Fan Expo Boston, August 6th and 8th. Fan Expo Canada, August 26th, 29th. September 17th, 19th is Edmonton Expo, but now it's also the same weekend for Fan Expo Dallas. And Fan Expo Dallas is a spring show. And then Wasabi Con got moved to October 16th. So if you notice the trend here, we have there's 3 shows that are happening March, May, and June. And like Origins Game Fair is a great example. Our contract with them actually has verbiage in there for the hours of programming that we're designing to run for their show. 50% of those hours are being designed with the knowledge that they are pivotable to be presented online in case they have to cancel. And that's the new norm in a lot of our contracts of, we're even looking at talent contracts of, hey, I'm booking, like if I was, let's use it, if I was going to book Dakota, hey, Dakota, I'm booking you to be a DJ at one of my raves or dances at one of my conventions. But in your contract, I'm paying you this deposit with the understanding that if the show doesn't go in, you're not getting the balance because it's not happening. However, the deposit we paid will now be leveraged. I need you to appear for X number of hours on a live stream that weekend for A, B, and C. And that's becoming a norm. I'm seeing a lot more with conventions. And,
that's good, though.
We have to plan for that at this point.
Yeah. I got to know, too, that's got to be so damn frustrating, man, especially like, with the constant shift with this virus, it's very unpredictable, which really sucks. How's it been like? It's kind of like you have to play like 5D chess with your shows, right? Like you've got to be able to be 3 or 4 moves ahead.
You have to, and people are learning to be more so. So, what we went through this year is a great example is a number of the shows we work for. Okay. It was, hey, you're going to provide, and the way our contracts work for contracted shows is, hey, you want anime programming? How many hours of programming do you want? Cool. We bill per hour. Here's our fees. We're going to design this for you. And then if that fails, it's just like a law firm. We just roll back to hours spent working on it gets billed against that hours. So say you take a convention and you go, cool, here's the programming design for this convention, set, ready to go. Because we planned, obviously, well in advance. And then you find out, hey, by the way, that's going to move. Cool. So what we had to, we all had to learn is, it sounds real simple. Okay, unplug and move. No, I now have to go through 50, 100 hours of programming, reconfirm everything, reconfirm everybody, delete and add. And when you start doing that multiple times for multiple shows, I mean, people are like, oh, it sucks. You're not doing, I've been on a plane since January 6th. They're like, you're not doing shows. I'm like, I'm working nonstop though, because it's like, okay, now here's the next plan. But what's happened because of 2020, and we've all had to operate that way throughout the entire year. Yeah. Again, Origins is a great example. My contract says, and even we just did an addendum with our informal one of, hey, this is going to happen, and this is what we're planning for in the ideal world of normal again. Yeah. However, Plan B is, A, B, and C need to be able to give us a Twitch stream or something that we can feed into our fans and still provide the programming. So we're still working that aspect. So 2020 was, I'm working nonstop. It's like I've learned, I've been doing nothing but throwing water, buckets of water on the fire. Now we're walking into 2021 and we learned instead of getting buckets, I've just got the truck pulled up here just in case. And I'm just holding the hose. Down. Yeah. And we've learned, I mean, everything's learning, and we have learned that we now have to have Plan B and Plan C in place.
Yeah. How long do you expect? This might be a little bit of a tough question to answer. Tom, do you ever think we're ever going to be able to have 60, 70,000 people at a con?
Yes.
Do you know? What do you? How soon would
What
you?
time frame do you think?
When do you think we would ever be able to have that many?
Not soon. It's not going to be for at least a couple of years, because there's two things we have to affect. Say tomorrow somebody created the miracle drug. There's a miracle drug. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And this is a high bar.
Yeah.
We have created a miracle drug that destroys COVID. There's never going to be such a thing.
Right.
However, pretend for a second that happened. If that happened, you now have to undo a year of cultural shift. There is going to be an underlying paranoia for a percentage of our population of, I don't know if I'm ready to go back into a mass gathering environment again, because I've now been conditioned to be afraid to do so.
Right.
The easier one, taking geek out of it, is when, I'm trying to figure out when's going to be the next time I'm going to be comfortable sitting in an audience at a concert.
Yeah.
When, take it to a smaller scale. When are you going to be comfortable walking out and going to a movie theater?
Right.
So you're going to have to, there's going to be there's two theories of what's going to happen. One is we're crimping the hose. And I say this a lot. And once conventions are safe to come back to, you're going to see an immediate surge in attendees. However, you're going to see those surge of attendees, but it's going to be tempered by the fact that we are probably going to want to restrict the number of coming to create the sense of feeling safe. I fly internationally all the time. United States, I have to take off my shoes. What does that do? It does two things: nothing and more nothing. Yeah, but it's security theater to make me and Americans feel better about travel. But Japan, they're like, what the fuck ever, or Europe, it's like, just why are you taking off your shoes, you dumb American? But we're going to wind up having to do, hey, I know that normally we bragged about, oh my God, look at everybody shoved in our giant packed vendors room. Now it's going to be like, no, we're not going to do that. X number of people, we have to, and you're going to see transparency. X number of people is our capacity. This is what we're gunning for, not more than this many people. And to show, proof that works, even outside, it was brought up, Dakota brought it up a couple times. A lot of it is based on local regulations, but there's also the other side of that, which is when businesses step in and self-regulate. So in Florida, we are now in phase 3, which means the training wheels are off. A lot of the things that you wouldn't be able to do, we can do. Yeah. 24 hours after our idiot leadership decided that was a good route to go. Walt Disney World put out a statement going, we understand that restrictions have been lifted. However, at this time, we will continue to operate with all the same previous safety restrictions and the same capacity level. So they're not opening the park to full capacity. Yeah. It's because, not because they can't, because they're making the conscious decision not to. And the reason for doing so is, you brought up the pushback from people. We joke all the time, I don't go to Disney. I went once since they opened, and I will go in the morning to Epcot because it's not as busy. And then as soon as I see just enough people, I'm out. And I did. I told my wife, I was like, I'm sorry, done, see you out. And it's not worth the risk for, Pirates of the fucking Caribbean. But what happened though is
it's not Metallica, guys.
Yeah. And so, but what's happening is the reason Disney, I love seeing, and again, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, these videos show up. There was a great video recently of this guy walking through that God will protect me and you're all sheep and blah, 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 screaming, walking through Disney's Hollywood Studios. He was creating this huge scene and he had security around him following him. And it's a great video because if you watch his full video, there's somebody there with him, and it brings you to the whole thing of it. He's on his high. He is so sure of himself. How dare you make me wear a fucking mask? And he was going, and you see the video, and to his credit, he didn't stop filming, which I'm very happy for. He got all the way to the front of the park. They took him to security. They had the conversation. And then suddenly the OPD, Orlando Police Department, is there. And he's like, whoa, what's going on? And he's full paid for his annual pass. And as a Floridian, I can tell you, those suckers ain't cheap. A year-long annual pass. So he's paid in full. And then the cop shows up. And then he's like, oh, why is there a cop there? And they're like, sir, you are now being trespassed. You are not going to jail. However, if you ever set foot property, while this trespass is in effect, you will go to jail. Are we being clear with you? And his demeanor suddenly went from, yeah, to what? And it's like, yeah, your $1,000 pass ain't getting refunded. Yeah. You now run the risk of going to jail. I hope it was worth it. And we see those videos here in Florida, and Disney's like passively like, yeah, share the shit out of that, because they have a very harsh, hard line. I mean, there's a woman who tried to shame them of, my kid is autistic, and like, we fully empathize. But before you got there, it was made clear that if your child is not under the age of 2, they have to, well, he can't. The B-side is, well, if he can't handle that, then why is he going to a theme park? And so Disney's like, you know, they're going to try to sue Disney, and they're like, we understand, but the safety level that they're pushing back on has been huge. And I think that's something that we're going to see conventions have to adopt. It's only X amount of people are going to be allowed at the convention. These safety protocols are in place. Are we necessarily going to need them all? No, especially as time goes on. But are we going to see our mega super giant expo, San Diego, blah, blah, blahs come back? Yes. Are we going to see them come back to those numbers immediately? No. But when we get there, it's going to be one hell of a party.
It's going to go back to the beginning of our conversation. We need these enforcers to actually enforce. And I think that the fact that Disney said, you know what, sorry, dude, your pass is null and void, you're trespassing, that needs to happen elsewhere. We need to not be afraid of the consumer and put our foot down and say, hey, this shit is not okay.
So here, kind of off topic, but on topic, here in my town where I live, our local Walmart has people now standing outside and will not let you in the front door without a mask on, period.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what needs to happen.
You know, that's the
we
whole.
Need more enforcing. That's what we need.
Yeah, that's been my entire problem with this whole pandemic, is these businesses acting like they can't tell people, they can't turn people away. Guess what? Yes, you fucking can. You're a business. You're a privately owned company. You have every right to kick these people out or tell them they can't shop there or can't come if they don't follow the rules. I mean, we've had, I mean, you know, it's just like the whole no shirt, no shoes, all that shit, right? If you kick people out for that,
mask.
If you kick people, if you kick people out for that, why are you not, you know?
My late father had a popular phrase he liked to beat into the ground with me, which is, okay, if I'm driving down the highway and I see a semi and it's driving directly for me, I'm doing the speed limit. I'm in the correct lane. I have my lights on for safety, my seatbelt on, I'm doing everything right, and this truck is in the wrong lane. What am I supposed to do? And, you know, the obvious answer is, we'll swerve. He goes, whoa, but they're breaking the law. They're doing it wrong. So you can stay there and be right.
Yeah.
But you will be dead right. So the problem you're dealing with, and again, I say this all the time, there's a lack of empathy in our culture to look at the full picture. And I will get mad and I will quit supporting. There's businesses in my town I don't go to because they have we believe it's your right. No, that's a failure on public safety. However, I understand their motivation, because if you have nobody coming into your store because of COVID, you want anybody coming in your store if you're trying to keep the doors open. And it's very, very hard to tell a starving person, you know, hey, you shouldn't put your elbows on the table if you're eating dinner. Fuck you, I'm starving. So while I disagree wholeheartedly with, you know, hey, letting people in that don't have masks, I at least understand the level of desperation they're at. I just choose not to, you know, you got to choose that balance. And a lot of it, you know, again, going back to, you know, Dakota brought up a great point, and I'm going to keep beating on it, is a lot of it rests on local policy. And that's where, you know, if your local lawmakers or councils or something have not put something into play, it is much easier for me to turn around and go, you got to put on a mask. Well, it's a free, I'm sorry, county policy. I've now taken accountability and tossed it away. However, if it's not in place where you live and it's, you know, hey, make your own decision, I'm fucking desperate. I got wife and kids at home. I've got to pay my bills. I got to put food on the table. Hey, why that guy's not wearing a mask? You're right. But, you know, if I confront him and tell him, one, I'm going to run the risk of, you know, if I'm in a town that leans that way, I'm in Florida. So, you know, I'm in a town that leans that way. Suddenly I'm being eviscerated on the internet of, you know, fuck you because you goddamn liberal and you made me wear a mask and kicked me out and it's a free country and I had my card. And, you know, it's all bullshit. Yeah. But it's not going to matter to you at the end of the day if you're having to close your doors, you can't pay your bills, and no money is coming in. So it's a slippery slope. So the trick is when we're looking at these conventions, I mean, half of me does understand hey, you know, we don't have any restrictions, blah, blah, blah. Because there's no restrictions in place. And like I said, use the convention I went to a couple of weeks ago as a perfect example.
Absolutely.
They have no fucks to give. And they've made it crystal clear that, you know, in their posts on social media of their goal is all the vendors there are starving. There's no shows. They're toy vendors. They're game vendors. It is nothing but a shopping show. Please come to our show to support these small businesses that are fucking dying right now. Mm-hmm. However, they want no level of accountability. So there's no accountability here and not my problem. Or, you know, hey, the hotel, yeah, the sign said put on a mask, but not my job to enforce it. I'm in this, you know, conference center.
Yeah.
So I think that the success of it, the long term, this is when it's a short-term perception versus long-term. People are just trying to survive right now. Some people are making the wrong decisions while they're trying to survive. But I can't be the judge of somebody who's just trying to survive. I can choose where to spend my money and choose not to go there. And is it going to hurt them long-term or short-term? And that's where they have to make their own decision, because at the end of the day, pop culture events and these sort of, you know, dances, mass gatherings, all of this are the same thing. They're businesses that have bills to pay. But are you trying to survive for the short term? Are you trying to survive for the long term? Or do you not have a choice in the matter and you have to choose one because you don't have the luxury of the other one? You know, Green Mustard Entertainment Inc., the company, I have a talent booking company. I own conventions. I'm contracted by other conventions. You know, we can design and operate projects. We're sustainable through this to a degree. Don't get me wrong. At some point I have to wake up and go, oh, shit, I can't do this anymore. I have to have some other source of revenue if no other sources of revenue exist. And we creatively come up with solutions. So we're just like any other business, but we are in a position where at least we can and have the time and the breathing room to do so because of what we do, and we have these solutions. If I was owning a store on the corner and I sold widgets and nobody wants to go buy widgets because widgets aren't useful anymore in the midst of a pandemic, I don't care who the fuck's coming in my store. Please come buy a fucking widget. Or my Darwinism conversation. You need to adapt and find a better way to sell your widget, a new way to sell your widget. And the best example of this is, you know, not to go too far off the stream, but comic book stores. I have friends that own comic book stores. And there's a guy in Orlando, Florida, as a friend of mine. Aaron owns a shop called A Comic Shop. And he made national news because when everything hit, they had to close their doors. And he's like, that's not going to stop me. I'll buy your comic books. And he does a stream daily on his Facebook. And he goes, cool, here's this. We're putting it up for auction. Bids start at this. And that guy is pure hustle and is still making money. I have two other friends that figured out that model of, hey, we don't want you coming in the damn store, but we still have all the same cool interview. Here's the reach on social media and online. Let's find a new way to distribute and to sell. And so, you know, conventions are going to come back. Yeah. Conventions are going to come back. We're going to have, I'm going to go to Anime Expo again one day with 100,000 people, or Fan Expo Canada with 130,000. And, you know, we're all going to be like, oh my God, it's like the good old days. Is it going to be 2021? Nah. Is it going to be 2022? Closer, but no.
I don't know. Yeah.
We're going to ease back into it. Yeah. And, you know, but in the interim, you're going to experience something a little different. If anybody's ever been to a failed convention with awesome stars, I went to this convention and it bombed. But you know what? The people who were there when it bombed had the greatest time ever, because there's only a few hundred people and there weren't lines, and you still got to see your awesome thing and do your awesome stuff. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be in the midst of right now is, hey, we booked so-and-so. We're doing this at this convention. And instead of having 50,000 people, I'm there with 10,000 people. It's a hell of a lot easier to oh shit, I am having a great time. But it's like, you know, we're going to have to find a way. There's a balance sheet somewhere where we're going to go from, hey, all the money to do a million things. How do we do it more inexpensive and still create? And the goal in the end is, how do we create an enjoyable experience for our attendees? And now it has to become an enjoyable and safer than before experience. Yeah. And that's where it's going to go.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
And Tom, I didn't hear, man, on your long list of schedule there that you gave us, I didn't hear you coming down to LA, man. You don't come down to Los Angeles on the West Coast?
So there's an event in, do you know what Anime Expo is?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. So there's an event that Anime Expo does called Project Anime. And Project Anime is there you go. Project Anime is the B2B show. It's the annual conference of anime convention runners. I'm actually the co-founder of Project Anime.
Yep.
I was contracted by, I worked at Anime Expo 2012, 2013 to help them design that. And I used to come out to LA every single year. This last year, 2019 was the first year I skipped it in 10 years. And when I go to LA now, it's for Talent for Cons work. So I'm actually in LA, but I haven't been to a show in LA since the summer of 2018. So,
oh, wow.
But I go where I'm sought after. Again, we're mercenaries.
Yeah.
So we show up where the money is, or if there's opportunity for us. But no, I speak fluent. My big thing in traveling is, have you ever heard of a show called Man vs. Food?
Oh yeah, I love that show.
I've been to about 40 locations now, because every time we get booked for a city, we do it. So there's that ramen place in Little Tokyo. I've been to Philp, the original. I've gotten my French dip. So yeah, no, I love LA.
I work right down the street from Philip's. That's an awesome spot.
Oh man, I love that place.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show here, but before we do that, and we know that, look, these cons are gonna have to adapt to survive, right? That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
It's Darwinism at its finest, man. Not everybody's gonna make it. That sucks, but that's life. You gotta, you either, you can't sit and expect everybody to do the work for you. And, everybody's had to adapt. That's why we have Zoom now. People are using Zoom to teach for schools and for podcasting and all this wonderful stuff and fun stuff we'd like to do. But before we close the show, I want to give Tom and Dakota each a few minutes to just promote. Like, I know you do Convention Nerds. Where can people go, Tom, to listen to your podcast? And just do, if you want to promote whatever, man, go for it. Okay,
so shameless plug part. Okay, got it. So conventionnerds.com. If you go there, you can find. And we, again, we are a weekly podcast. We run live on Twitch. And then after we run live on Twitch, we 2 weeks later, put the video up on YouTube and on Facebook episodically. And also, if you just prefer the audio version, we have the audio podcast that you can listen to on Apple, Google, Spotify. The upcoming shows, I'm gonna have to pull up my list. This week, next Tuesday will be Anime Boston. The week after, we're talking to a controversial show down in Texas called Anime Matsuri. The week after that, as promised, we're bringing on the CEO from LA Comic-Con to have a discussion about, well, you had to stop, but I want to hear what you had planned.
Yeah.
And then the weekend after that, we're talking to Hawaii Con because I'm curious what it's like, being on a closed ecosystem of an island. So Convention Nerds is the capacity I'm here for. Beyond that, the parent company is Wasabi Anime. We've been around since 2001. Basically running anime events as a hobby, and then now it's a hobby gone horribly wrong because it's a business. You can go to find us on every social media under the name Wasabi Anime on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And then the big thing we're pushing right now is, because conventions aren't happening, the best way you can support us is we're developing a lot of great programming on Twitch, which is obviously twitch.tv Wasabi Anime. Monday nights, we have a show run by our Maid Cafe. So if you're into that, it's a lot of fun. They have a different Maid Cafe on every Monday. Tuesday is Convention Nerds. Thursday, we have what we call RPG for Weebs, where we have one of the women who runs our shows basically just playing JRPGs. And then Friday, next week, we're launching a brand new show for tabletop gamers. There's a company called Japanime Games, which makes like a Cowboy Bebop game. I mean, all these games, and every Friday they're going to be doing a show about anime board games and things like that. So Wasabi Anime on everything, specifically on Twitch, and Tuesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Check us out on Convention Nerds if you're interested about learning more about running cons.
Cool, very cool.
Well, I just gave you a follow on. I just gave you a follow on Twitch, so.
Well, thank you. I'm doing that after the fact.
Our producer is going to love that because she tracks the numbers. I'm going to get a message from her.
Yeah, I just gave you guys a follow on Twitch, so there you go. And Dakota,
and we'll definitely have.
We'll
definitely have all the links, just to make sure. But Dakota, go for it, man. What you got?
Yeah, man. Promote whatever, buddy.
I DJ as well. Every Saturday night on Twitch, we bring the dance club to your living room. So I'll be live tonight at 10 Eastern. A little late, but dance clubs go late, right? So we'll be doing that. And twitch.tv/RealDak, RealDak. And on Twitter, I'm at the DJ Dak. Gonna be doing some dance club style stuff tonight. So if people are interested in hanging out on Saturdays, that's where we are.
Awesome.
We do costume contests on the show before mine, and just all night fun. That's a good time.
REALDAK.
Costume.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I just gave you a follow
right now.
I just
Well,
gave
thank
you.
you. Thanks.
Yeah.
See, I put my phone away, man. I feel like I should have my phone in front of me. You guys are all following everybody else.
Hey man, you gotta be
And
prepared.
I'm waiting for the links after the fact.
Well, I've
man.
got 2 monitors and the phone and an iPad.
Same.
so
Yeah, there you
cheating.
go. Yeah.
See, I'm over
Well,
here
you guys-
giving you guys my undivided attention. You
Well,
guys
yeah,
over here on devices.
Yeah,
That's
man.
not cool, man.
No, you give us, but you guys give us, give me your links. Message them to me, and I'll make sure because for those listening at home, we do a video version of this podcast whenever we have a guest on the show. So this will be up on. This is already up now. Obviously, you're watching it, but like, but we do the video version on YouTube every Monday. Same with when our podcast is released on audio. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Music. We're basically a whore for whatever wherever you can listen.
Whatever
to
social media, we're on there somewhere.
wherever you're at. But every episode is new on every Monday, and then Victor and I are actually planning. Maybe we can't really. It's kind of hard to plan this stuff. We would like to be able to travel and take this show on the road and go to conventions, but who knows? I don't.
Good luck with that right now.
That's gonna happen, but
so that's in the distant future. But
that is in the distant future when we can do that. So who knows? Maybe we can do some of your conventions, Tom. We can go to do our show there, and
you get yourself there and an internet connection. I can give you the space.
We'd love it.
That's the most I can promise.
But thank you guys for coming on the show, and thanks Samuel Chase for being on the show too.
Well, yeah.
We appreciate him being on the show, his point of view, and everybody else here as well. And guys, we'd love to have you guys back on the show eventually at some point as well to talk about anything else, or cons or pop culture. That's what our show is about here, is pop culture. We do a lot of video gaming stuff, and of course anything in the entertainment field as well. But thank you guys for coming on the show. And until next time, my name is Brian Daniels. That's Victor Salazar. Y'all have a good rest of your day. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.
Later.